Cool. Hey, Amit, thanks for kicking this off. So let me briefly introduce myself, right? So I'm Barnik Maitra. I'm actually an AGC board member. I joined the board over 6 months back. 30 seconds for myself. I am a management consultant, been that for the last 20 years, currently a managing partner at Arthur D. Little, and I worked for nearly 16 years at McKinsey as a partner. I'm a tech investor and a marketing tech enthusiast. And I've spent a lot of my time helping clients and customers use Adobe products, right? So I view, I'll bring a little bit of the customer view, and it's great to be on this discussion and talk with a distinguished panel about this topic. Lokesh, why don't you go next?
Hey, thanks, Barnik. This is Lokesh here. I work as the Vice President of AGC. Been with AGC and Amit since its inception. I think it's been like close more than a year now. I work as a principal architect at TA Digital. Been with Adobe space close to like 10 to 12 years now. Very happy to be part of this, the panel discussions, and then hope you guys enjoy it.
Cool. Tad, you want to go next?
Sure, I'll go next. So I'm the probably the least illustrious of any of you on here, but I've been in the Adobe space for about 10 years now. I've touched a lot of different AEM environments. I'm an AEM Architect for ICF Next right now, and yeah, I guess I'm here to provide the infrastructure and on the ground perspective in contrast to our pretty high end guys that we have here from Adobe.
Cool. Philip, you want to go next?
Sure. Hey, my name is Philip. I'm heading engineering of AEM assets overall for AEM, and I've been with Adobe for with AEM, I must say, for 20 years this year. So long time experience with the product and how it grew into where it is right now. And so I'm really excited to be part of the panel and hopefully providing you some value while answering questions.
Cool. I think Alex is also here from Adobe, but I think he's not being able to join, but fingers crossed we'll be able to figure out
Alex
something.
is here, Barnik.
Oh, cool. Can you, Alex, will you go next if you're already on?
Can you hear and see me?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay, perfect. Zoom didn't like me today. So, but now I switched to the iPad, and so this has this nice virtual background. So you see I'm from San Francisco. I'm with Adobe for almost, not as long as Philip, but over 12 years now. And I'm a principal scientist on Philip's assets team. And yeah, I spent a lot of time in the recent years working on AEM as a cloud service. So I might share a few things today.
Cool. Thanks a ton. So let's move forward, Amit. So I think the way, as Amit was mentioning, we've structured this discussion is we have around 10 questions we want to explore, and between Lokesh and I, we will pose these questions to our panelists, right? So let me get right to the topic. I think the first question is just to give an overview of what is AEM as a cloud service. AEM was one of the biggest announcements with Adobe made in the summit this year. AEM as a cloud service was their big flagship announcement. So let's start the panel discussion by asking Philip to just kick us off and present a few slides on and perspectives on what is AEM as a cloud service, and then we can take the discussion from there.
Sure. Next slide, please. So I'm really excited to talk about AEM Cloud Services today. It's been a long journey for us to get where we are. So a couple of years ago, we realized that we really want to move into the cloud and becoming a cloud native PaaS SaaS solution going forward, and then pave kind of our future for the next couple of years. AEM Cloud Service has been officially announced mid of January this year, and we, by having already successfully onboarded a couple of pilot customers at this time, and got some really good learnings and feedback from these customers. So by the time we announced it, we knew that we built out a pretty solid service infrastructure for our future. So what are no, can you stay with the other one?
Stay with the first slide, Steve.
Yeah, first one. So a couple of characteristics of AEM as a cloud service. So always on. So in the past, whenever you had to upgrade or provide some maintenance or maybe add some new application, there sometimes was a need to turn it off and just deploy everything again and then come back as a service. Nowadays, with AEM as a cloud service, we're always on. Next one, always current. Many of you know about the pain upgrading from one version to the other. So in the past, we released yearly a new version. With AEM as a cloud service, we're making sure that the service is always up to date to the very latest innovations and security fixes and bug fixes. So I'll talk a little more about that in the next slide. So third characteristic, always at scale. Again, always at scale means we're now able to horizontally scaling. This has been something that our customers has been waiting for a long time. Now with our architectures, we're able to scale on the author side and as well on the publishing side without you requiring to do anything. And then the last one is always learning. So again, we're making use of the native access of Sensei, intelligence, AI, and as well, we're able to apply automated corrective updates whenever we need, for example, for security updates, etc. Next slide. I just want to quickly deeper dive in the always current characteristics. So AEM as a cloud service, as I mentioned, is always running on the latest and greatest version of AEM. So no need anymore for any projects to upgrade from one version to the other. We'll have daily updates of the AEM base image. We'll have daily releases of hotfixes that we make available to our customer base right away. And then every month we release new features. We're building these features behind feature flags, and then whenever we're feeling that we're ready and maybe did run some tests with some select customers, then we enable the new features and make them available to our entire customer base. That's mostly just as a high level kind of little bit about characteristics and what AEM as a cloud service is all about. And I believe Tad has some more insights he want to share.
Yes. Cool. Let's get to Tad. Hey, Tad, over to you. Amit, you can change the slide.
This is just more off of Philip's explanation of the differences between a self-hosted or the way that AEM is put together on Adobe Managed Services to what we got with AEM as a cloud service. There's a couple of key differences that have been done. Number one, this is a fully containerized operation now and takes advantage of containerization. Another huge difference here is that for AEM assets, and this is something that Alex is likely going to be speaking to extensively, is AEM asset processing is no longer something that has to transit the author exclusively. This has been a big pain point for AEM assets ever since the beginning, in that if you've got to do a lot of transcoding, a lot of image manipulation and so forth, any of that traffic all has to go through the author. You end up having to scale your author up sometimes to these gigantic instances with tens of CPUs and tons of RAM, just to be able to take care of all of your transcoding and image renditions and so forth and workflows. Now all that is offloaded to microservices, which is scalable pretty much infinitely. So you've got that, and the other major difference here is that you've got Cloud Manager, which is now your exclusive ingress tool to the environment. You don't have any other. It's a fully standardized way of getting code into the environment, running tests, of making sure that everything is good to go.
Cool. So fascinating overview. participants, I'm sure this has elicited a lot of questions. Please feel free to use the chat window to pose your questions. Amit, let's move on to the next discussion, if you don't mind. So obviously there are lots of things going on in AEM as a cloud, right? But I wanted to ask a few of the panelists about what features of AEM as a cloud service are they most excited about. And Alex, if you don't mind, let's get to you and for you to talk about some of the features.
Sure. So I think there's many things, and some were already mentioned by Philip, talking about the auto update, and I saw there's already questions in the chat about that. The process is still gives you the control. So the validation of or the cloud manager is taking over as the pipeline for basically combining our product updates with your custom code. And there's a lot of validation steps in there, and these go apart from static code checks. It also involves validating against the stage environment. So whenever you publish or you have a new version of your own code, or AEM provides an update, this will be combined and can be tested on the stage environment, because there's always the potential that just the particular combination of an update with the custom code could lead to unintended behavior. So that's a way to validate it, and you can control how often that happens, and how automatic that will. The more automatic testing you have, this process can be fully automated, so you get basically automatic updates all the time, or you can control that and make sure you only deploy when you feel you're ready with those for those changes. So I think that's a really important area, but it's going to enable, for the end users, just better experience, because we're able to push out releases so much faster than before, where we're based off yearly releases and service packages in between. We're able to provide a much better experience from the Adobe perspective. And I think it also helps for projects in terms of the custom code, that we provide this kind of unified and structured by convention CI/CD. It really helps to get started, so you don't have to worry about those things on a project level anymore. It's kind of all the best practices are in there, and we're just gonna and extend that over time, make this really helpful for developers.
Cool. That's great. Hey, but Tad or Lokesh, do you guys have any of your personal favorite features?
I have more if you guys can think of some.
Yeah.
I have to say too that the prospect of not having to go through a painful upgrade is definitely something to be excited about. I think all of us, and probably the grand majority of the people who are participating here, have been through at least one, probably more than one, extremely long, drawn-out, painful upgrade of Adobe Experience Manager, and it's and I would say probably conservatively out of for every project that I've been on, I would say that that at least 40% of the time we're working on upgrading that environment, whatever environment that I'm working on. So the idea that these could be done painlessly and seamlessly and with the same frequency and risk level as just like a service pack or another software release is definitely exciting. The idea of author scaling also is one that has been this has been a perpetual problem since the word go on this, and the idea that one could be able to scale the author without having to have just a absolutely absurdly large authoring environment in order just to handle your spikes is definitely exciting, because there's never been a really suitable horizontal scaling solution for AEM, and so that's something that along with the assets offload is definitely exciting.
Cool. Hey, so Alex, sorry I interrupted you. I think you also had a couple of slides. You want to spend 30 seconds on each of these slides, because I think some of these points are covered, but just a little bit more of an overview of any of these slides. And participants will probably send the slide deck also around, so don't be worried if we spend less time on some of these slides. You'll have this with you at the end of the webinar.
Yeah, I just want to add a little thing on the auto update quickly. You know, it was mentioned these upgrades have been an issue in the past, and they have especially been an issue because we as a product team don't have insights in all those customizations. So it has been impossible for us before to provide a seamless upgrade experience on major versions because we couldn't test all these combinations right up front. They were only visible once they hit the project, once hit the customer. And then the cloud service really fundamentally changes that because now we actually have access to that. We can run tests, we can validate. So there's an option for certain customers to become part of a validation program where we can pre-validate things with their custom code as part of our product development pipeline. So we are in charge of the whole operation and the rollout of the actual deployment. So that really enables us to design product updates that are actually, that can be seamless. So I think this is really the key change and the key benefit down the road, or one of the biggest benefits of us doing this as a cloud service. But yeah, so I have a couple of slides, some on the feature, more on the kind of feature side, so to speak, is if you go back 2 slides. So the first thing quickly mentioned, we can offer CDN out of the box. We offer Fastly, but customers can also opt into a custom one. But we offer it out of the box, both for publishing, for sites publishing, as well as for them or AEM assets authoring. So all in that area, it's about the images, files, and assets. They'll be available through CDN. So the viewing experience, if you have customers who are across different regions, have multiple offices, will be much better. And the question like, oh, where do I deploy my AEM to have like the lowest common denominator or the least people or things like global DAM, where you kind of have to set up complicated replication scenarios just to give like low latency access. They're kind of mostly being solved by that. And yeah, CDN for sites, you know, obviously that I don't have to talk about that. That this is a nice thing that it's easy built in. If you go to the next slide, when it does looking specifically at AEM assets and asset ingestion, I think we did 2 things in one go here that really help. One is about the upload performance. So just like a CDN for viewing, we also changed how it is when people upload assets, because that has the same fundamental problem. If people are across the world in different offices, and some of them might, you know, upload large or many files, then they might really suffer from bottlenecks and slow network. And especially with bottlenecks, has been that we had to go through AEM, through dispatcher. So whatever you deployed there, whatever instance size you had, kind of also limited your network. And we couldn't really leverage CDN very much there, or any edge networks. So what we changed here is that we actually go directly to cloud storage, Azure Blob Storage as of today. And we can leverage CDN edge network performance for upload as well, because this blob storage is built for those high bandwidth access. So you see a lot of faster 2 to 10 times, depending on where you are, improvement out of the box for just plain uploads. And then the second part, if you go to the next slide that we did, is we moved out the asset processing out of AEM JVMs itself, because it has been an IO and CPO heavy operation that was just fighting with other parts of AEM for resources. And we moved that into a cloud native solution using actually Adobe I/O runtime serverless solution. So it very nicely scales out. And so we are able to handle much higher loads without any impact on AEM. And in a future update, we'll also have extensibility there. That's why we chose Adobe I/O runtime as a serverless platform, so we can have the still magic combination of a cloud service, scalable and extensible. And so we're really excited for that coming in the future.
Cool. Hey, thanks a ton, Alex. I think please keep your questions flowing on the Q&A window, because I think Philip is enthusiastically answering as many as he can. But with this, let me hand it over to Lokesh, who will take you through the next few questions.
Yeah, right. So I think so far, I think I hope all of you guys are, being benefited. So the next question for the panel here is, so from the developer's perspective, right? So how different is it to work when it compares to, the on-premise or a self-hosted AEM versus the Adobe as a managed services, or now AEM as a cloud services? So there could be multiple options for AEM to be hosted. So how is that different for the developers? So Tad, do you want to take a stab at it?
Sure. I was going to pick this up both from the aspect of developers, but also from the rest of the team who's going to be working on this, because it's not just the devs, it's a whole team who's got to get releases out and support a site. So there's a bunch of differences between self-hosted. Now, I also want to define this a little bit too, because self-hosted AEM in this case, we're treating that as a bundle with both having it on premise on your own location or in your own data center, or having it in a third-party cloud like AWS or Google Cloud or Azure. And that also includes having it hosted with a partner, because there's a number of Adobe partners that offer hosting services. So that would be all grouped under this self-hosted AEM classification. Adobe Managed Services is that service that's been offered for a while, which basically uses the same AEM binary that all the rest of us use. It's just hosted within their network and using their CI and automation and managed services as well. And then as separate from this new AEM as a cloud service. So that aside, I've got a few random thoughts here in no particular order of importance, but these are things that are all going to affect people who are adopting AEM as a cloud service or who are evaluating it. One that you're going to see is due to the fact that you're now containerizing everything, and you're separating content from code, and you're separating out the factory code, which is the whole reason why this service is able to work, is that the factory code is entirely separate and immutable from the perspective of the developer. So all these times that you've been writing to /etc and so forth with your custom code, that's all going to be out. That's all going to be immutable. So you're not going to be able to directly write to these locations. You're going to have your own sets of the repository that you're hitting. Now, in addition to that, nobody is going to be doing this frequent bad practice that nobody seems to be able to get rid of, which is directly writing things to the OSGI console and so forth. That's all basically straight out with AEM as a cloud service as well. The only time you're going to have access to the OSGI console is on your local developer SDK copy. There's going to be no classic UI. So that's one thing. You're going to be having to migrate all your components to Touch UI. In terms of continuous integration, this is something that is kind of double-edged sword. You've got a lot of people who on self-hosted AEM who have their own complex and various solutions to continuous integration. You've got people with Jenkins or Bamboo or TeamCity or whatever they're using to be able to get code all the way to production. And in some cases, those are really rudimentary setups, and in some cases, they're really complex and do a lot of really critical, business critical things in terms of rollouts and testing and so forth. So that's something that in self-hosted AEM, you've got quite a bit of leeway on how to get code to production. As a result, it's also not standardized, so it makes things difficult to be able to, when you get into things like upgrades and being able to validate whether or not something is okay to be able to move to another version. But on Adobe Managed Services, there are some, on earlier versions, there is still access. One can still hit these package manager endpoints and so forth with an external CI solution, but it's highly recommended and mostly expected that you're going to be on Cloud Manager by the time you're on Adobe Managed Services. But on AEM as a cloud service, the whole way that the code actually is going to get into the system is entirely different from what you've got as in self-hosted AEM. So all of you're basically going to have to ensure that your project is compatible with and is ready for Cloud Manager in order to in order to go into AEM as a cloud service. And that is definitely probably one of the more significant changes that development teams are going to run into when migrating to AEM as a cloud service. And I don't know, Alex and Philip, if you want to go into more detail on that specifically, because that is a semi-major point. But yeah. So we've got that. There's a couple other differences in terms of there's right now with the current iteration of AEM as a cloud service. It's kind of it was released with mainly sites and assets in mind. There's a number of other AEM frameworks such as forms, communities, screens, and commerce that are not a part of this and are roadmap items and will be integrated at some point. But that's something that if that's something that you use heavily, you're not necessarily going to be a target site for running on AEM as a cloud service. In terms of infrastructure, it's obviously going to be a difference. There's no version of AEM as a cloud service that you can containerize and run on your own infrastructure. If you've got infrastructure requirements or something like that, that's not the purpose of the point of this. Another one that is going to be a pretty major difference on development teams is that, and this is especially for people like me who've spent their lives in AEM infrastructure, a lot of the day-to-day is figuring out how to maintain AEM. And at this point, almost all of that maintenance is entirely automated and is under Adobe purview. So that's not something that you're going to be having to do at all. So data store garbage collection, version purges, compaction, audit purges, et cetera, those are all managed by Adobe. And then you've got some configuration on task purges and workflow purges that you can do out of Git. But the rest of that is all going to be not something that you're going to have to be concerning yourself with and dealing with space issues and all the other things that go along with that. And with that, when it comes to maintenance, another headache that people have to deal with a lot is with backups, which is something that AEM as a cloud service is handling now out of the box as well. There's a 24-hour point-in-time restore. So if when you do a deployment, something's bad, you can go and choose a point in time and restore to that point in time, as well as daily backups that you can restore to as well. So that's, again, these are things that one as in trying to compose a team who's going to go and stick AEM into production, you had to have DevOpsy folks who could handle these pipeline creations and handle all your maintenance and figure out your backups and all that kind of stuff. And now that is going to be handled as part of the service. So,
the great points. Alex or Philip, to add anything on top of it?
No, I think Tad really covered very well everything. I would propose that we're moving to the next slides in the rest of time.
Cool, fantastic. So Samit, can you move to the question number 4? Yeah. So here let's look at something around the impact of it, right? So if we have an AEM on-premise integrated with other Adobe applications, right? So what is the impact of that, moving that to a cloud, the cloud service of AEM right now? So Philip, do you want to take a lead on this?
Oh, yeah, sure. I was just in the middle of answering questions.
I know you were busy.
I mean, honestly, I don't think it's a problem, right? So with by moving to AEM as a cloud service, I think you get even more access to other Adobe applications, because now you're running in the IMaaS context, which is kind of opening up access to all solutions within Adobe. It makes integrations even easier going forward. I don't think I have to add more context here. Maybe Tad or Alex, anything you want to add?
I can add something. Well, there will also be better integrations out of the box because of that, right? Because with a lot of the things that previously have been hard for us to do, because in an on-premise environment, there's limited things you can assume. Now we are more under control, and as Philip said, IMaaS, Adobe ID is part of it, and that makes for easier integrations. Also, the enablement of solution integration, basically the whole provisioning is getting more automated, and there's lots of things to look out for in the future where we have a much better out-of-the-box integration with other Adobe services.
Good, great. I think it's good to know that it's more better in terms of integration as well, and then without any impact. Also, moving to the next customer. So obviously, I mean, in the next question, customers, and most of us who comes from the services company, the customer, or from the Adobe perspective, the customer becomes the top priority. So, and I think it is very important for us to know, who is the ideal customer for AEM sites or AEM assets as a cloud service, given the current state of the product. For the
Oh, all right. So we do have still to catch up in certain areas, but I would say, if we talk about ideal customers or ideal kind of use cases that we could look at for sites, I would say whenever you start a new project, you should certainly look at it, right? Especially projects that need to be stood up very quickly within weeks instead of months or years. Right, so we provide a really great support of our core components, architecture, and the like, and so that's only an area to look into. There is some restrictions we're having in terms of currently limited VPN support, but this is on the roadmap, and we're working on it, and do have white papers kind of describing alternative ways on how to connect on that end. There's a couple of more areas, but maybe Ted or Alex have some of them top of their mind. I don't right now for the sites part. On the assets question, I would encourage to have everyone looking at as a very first option for cloud service, because of the following. It comes now with extreme scale. We're supporting native Creative Cloud files. We're providing kind of everything that makes a digital asset management much more superior than it was used to be before. So I'm almost seeing no limits there. There might be some. For example, one is as well on some certifications in terms of security. For example, FedRAMP is one that to mention. Again, it's on the roadmap that might limit some use cases. But again, for assets, I would always point the customers to this as a first option to look into. Sites, also always looking into it. There might be some limitations. Most of the limitations that the customers are, or that you see by going through the use case with the customers, are already on the roadmap and known by us and being taken care, and understand we're now continuously deliver features and updates and enhancements. So means you don't have to wait anymore for a new release, a new yearly release. You get value on a monthly, on sometimes, well, and as said as well, on a daily basis if it's fixes or security patches. Alex, Ted, anything you want to add?
Sure, I could add a couple of things there. So in terms of ideal customers, I would definitely echo the fact of what Philip was saying, is that if you get a new customer and they're a net new AEM customer, like let's say they're migrating from another CMS, or they've got a net new project that is not on existing infrastructure right now, that's definitely an ideal candidate to go and fire up on AEM as a cloud service, because you can take advantage of everything, and you're not doing a big migration project to try to amend all the old cruft and so forth, or also other infrastructure decisions that you had made because of limitations in the product before. You're not trying to go and refactor all those or rethink or reimagine your entire site based on the new product. So definitely for a net new customer, that would be an ideal customer. There are there are definitely limitations. I mean, this is a new product, and so there are. It's not in every zone and region right now. So you've got, let's just say you've got a website. Let's say you're a hotel and you're serving up customers in Asia as well as the US. There's not an Asia zone right now for this. Some of that you can offload with a CDN, but that may not be. You may not want to deploy on this at this particular moment. Let's just say you've got a whole bunch of additional infrastructure that has to sit alongside your AEM that has to deploy at the same time. That may not be able to be handled very well with the cloud service right now. You may not be an ideal customer for the product, but definitely for these net new ones, just simple content sites, ones that without UGC, because right now AEM Communities isn't a part of the product yet. So if you've got a lot of UGC, you'd have to find another UGC solution to deploy along your product. You're not going to be bringing along a Mongo and Solar setup to this, but that would definitely that'd be for AEM sites. Now for AEM assets, I think my recommendation would probably be a lot broader, because it's pretty common for customers, especially larger ones, to have an AEM sites implementation, which is your publisher and your author tier, and then an entirely separate assets instance, which covers a totally separate workflow in terms of interacting with agencies and these bulk uploads, and then people using a subset of those, not all of them, a subset of those on their AEM sites and so forth. Now with the scalability and the fact that that you can take all of that traffic and all that CPU and IO intensive work that was formerly having to occupy the same set of CPUs as your main content author, you can get that on an infinitely scalable assets environment, and then you could use something like AEM Remote Assets to be able to connect your either AMS installation or even your on-premise installation to a cloud service hosted assets environment. So I definitely think that for somebody looking to upgrade or looking at ways of improving their assets environment, that there are hybrid infrastructure approaches which may be really attractive, and those are ones that I would definitely have a look at, because the assets piece is pretty sweet. Alex and Co did an amazing job on that.
Awesome. It's a great point, Stat. Thank you. So to look at some of the use cases now, right? So I think this will actually complement a couple of the questions before that we looked at. So if you have to look at some of the use cases between the on-premise versus on-premise on a cloud, or AEM as a cloud service. So so what are those specific use cases which falls into these different categories? So Philip or Alex, do you guys want to take
on this one? I think just in the interest of time, there's a couple of the questions that I think that, because we've hit a couple of these use case scenarios so far, we may want to be able to make sure that we get to some of those other questions that.
Yeah, I would propose the same.
Yeah. So we've covered the use cases. So let's move to the cost question. So let me jump back here. I think there's a very clear question which we've seen and other people have also asked us as what's the cost structure for both the AEM assets and the AEM sites as a cloud service, and how does it compare to the traditional model? So Philip, I know you have a slide. Let's get to that slide, and Philip, over to you.
Yeah, but before we move to the slide, I'm just talking a little give me a second, a little more high level about the costs, right? So I understand that everyone is interested about price points and whatever. I mean, I cannot talk explicitly to this, but oral statement is with cloud service, we're making true enterprise CMS more accessible to the mid-market companies and or department use cases as a way for large enterprises to start, right? So oftentimes, well, it's great that you can tap into mid-market departmental use cases first, and then grow them into enterprise areas. But we have some updates on the pricing strategy for assets and sites. So assets is priced based on users. There are standard users who are working in the DAM, and light users who might consume approved assets through some other means like brand portal or asset share, as an example. For sites, this is priced based on page impressions. that's kind of the change we made in the subscription model and the pricing thingy. Now, one thing I want to call out around cost is something that's being described on the next slide. So please move on to the next slide.
I have just one question on this.
Yeah.
So is it the right understanding that the parameters for costing is users and impressions? Is this also traffic?
Well, impressions can be looked at traffic, right? But I'm not sure about what you mean by traffic.
So is also like one of the parameters for on-premise or other license models are traffic being the one metric that you use for costing or pricing, right? So is it still something similar, or is there any changes to that?
Yeah, I'm not sure about the traffic thing. I know that in the past we charged by instance. That now we're charging the service, right? And we're not anymore looking into kind of how many instances are supporting these use cases so far. Considering that we now have autoscale in place, it's fairly easy to, well, that's kind of the area that we're hiding from anyone, and we're just providing kind of taking care of serving best ever impressions or page impressions, or in terms of assets, making sure that we can scale based on the load.
Okay.
Can you advance one more? That's an animation. Okay, great. So what I want to talk here is a little bit about kind of lower total cost of ownership. If you remember with AEMS as we had it in the past, or still have with on-prem and managed services or cloud-hosted infrastructure, AEM, well, you usually have an implementation, right? And then going forward for the next years, you're having, well, you have to maintain customizations or build out new customizations. You have to take care of maintaining the systems by applying maintenance releases, doing all the tests, etc., to build this out. And then, for example, in the case of managed services, we're recommending to upgrade every 2 years to the latest version, right? And this is usually a bigger effort that needs to be taken into consideration, be it from the customers in terms of budget, etc., and workforce. So with cloud services, things change quite a bit. So yes, you still have the implementation costs, and you still have the cost for customizations the years after. But considering that we're now almost always current, all the effort that that usually is well, everything else that contributes to costs running the AEM go away, right? So no upgrades anymore, because you're now always on the most current version. Maintenance is taken care as well, considering that we're keep your system always updated. And if you look at, I'm just giving you an example. So let's assume that an upgrade costs you $300,000 per upgrade. If you now divide this by 24 months, you'll see that you're gonna save a lot of money per month that you can invest either invest into true innovation on the product or on your project, instead of investing into maintenance and upgrades. So that's a big plus, and something whenever you talk to new customers, that deserves a big call out.
Cool.
I
think let's wait for some questions in the Q&A, but let's move on in the interest of time. Lokesh, over to you.
Yeah. So we've been talking about the implementation, the use cases, right? From the migration perspective for the existing customer. So what are the things that they should be aware, or what is the road path to that particular migration to AEM as a cloud service? Philip or Alex, one of you guys want to take it from the migration aspect?
Oh yeah, so on the migration, I can quickly start here. So certainly we want to make sure that we provide a good experience for all our customers, being now on-prem or on managed services, to migrate over to cloud services as easy as possible. And I can tell you, we learned a lot with our pilot customers for this. It was somewhat rocky for some of them to be migrated, but again, we listened very closely. We were very much involved into all of these efforts to migrate them over into the cloud services. And the outcome is that we've been working on a very comprehensive tool set for migration. The first version of this tool set has been made available from what I know just a couple of days ago or weeks ago, that allows you to easy upgrade your system from be it on-prem or managed services to cloud services. Note, something very, very new is everyone will explore and that's cloud service, right? The cloud manager. So the cloud manager comes now with cloud services. It already comes with managed services for if customers want to use it. And it's actually a self-service portal that allows you to define your Git repositories and all of that stuff, and then have everything deployed onto your systems automatically. The cloud manager is kind of a CI/CD pipeline. The CI part is also coming with quality gates that are being considered. So something that will happen for sure is that you have to must probably adopt a little bit some of the code, because we're providing recommendations on how to improve the code so that the overall quality of the code is increased, and therefore is working well with the cloud service.
Cool. I think
any other
we'll move to the next question, keeping the time in consideration. So the next one is the challenges, right? So from the technical aspects of it, so what are the challenges that the AEM customers are facing while they're moving into the AEM as a cloud service? Tad?
I can take up a few. There are some here that we've already taken up in some level of detail. I mean, one of the challenges, though, and this kind of goes back to cost a little bit, is that when you're setting up a site, it's always as an architect and doing pre-sales on this, a lot of times you're in this untenable position of somebody asking you, how many AEM licenses do I need? How many should I buy? And it's really, really hard to be able to say how many that is when you've got an untested site, and sometimes you might buy too little, you might buy way too much, and then you're just using all this, you get all this excess capacity. So having a service which is usage based as opposed to license based gives you a lot more flexibility, but also allows you to not have to design around limitations of your infrastructure. Because I've seen so many environments where you've only got enough licenses for 2 publishers, and that's it. And so you end up having to go with heavy caching and less personalization than you would have wanted, because of the fact that you just simply don't have enough money to buy more AEM published licenses. So that's one thing which the cloud service addresses, or at least dramatically changes the field on. Another one is the amount of infrastructure automation that you would have to do in order to be able to handle scaling events, and also to handle backups, restores, moving content from production to stage, all this sort of stuff that each company really ends up having to design their own bespoke solutions for, and just do a lot of either Ansible or Chef or Puppet or manual clickety-click type stuff to handle all these. Hey, we need another publisher. Let's either run this script or manually go and stand it up and copy an SCP and all that other kind of stuff. And so this is definitely a much cleaner means of doing it, to be able to have all that scaling handled behind the scenes. And then, like I said, author scaling is huge. Author scaling is, I can't really overstate how much that is, because as an administrator, a lot of times, even though what really counts is your publisher or your customers, your end users, the people that you hear the most from are your authors. And they're the people who have, you know, the direct email or Slack of the senior vice president, overlord, grand poobah guy who can come to your desk and fire you. So a lot of times the things that cause you the most stress is when the author is having problems. So, so to have the author finally be able to scale and handle that is a really big deal.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of good points, Dad. Thanks for that. So, Barnik, do you want to take over?
Yes, so I think the last question, and then we can see if we are remaining any questions. So I think the panelists have comprehensively answered that if you're going to try AEM for the first time, I think both from an aspects and also sites point of view, try out AEM as a cloud. But there are also several brands who have a long established AEM presence and AEM assets, right? What would be your summary message for existing users and big brands on how best to approach this new cloud paradigm? In 30 seconds, we just give them some pointers and then we can get to some more questions.
Yeah, I can take this one. So I would certainly recommend to use it, to start using it and playing around. So we have Adobe offers a sandbox program that you can that allows you to make your first experience with the cloud services. So that's kind of the first thing I would promote, right, to this long-term established, to these customers using it already for a long time. Then there's ways that makes it easier than to move or kind of figure out how hard a move would be. So by leveraging kind of the cloud manager, this tool set is kind of informing you already how much effort it's going to take to move from A to B, or from A to B, etc. And just having kind of experience first, and then I would propose, if there's a smaller projects that they anyways want to run on AEM, instead of going with managed services or on-prem, let's try it out with cloud services, experience all the advantages that come with, and then based on this, then start moving stuff slowly over to the service.
Cool. I think Amit, you're keeping an eye on the Q&A window. I know we are past the hour, right? But are there any questions which we've missed, which you would like to direct to the panelists, and we can probably take another 5-6 minutes to answer a few more questions, and then we should wrap it up.
Yes, so a couple of questions that I see over here in the chat window. Let me pick up one over here. Does AEM as a cloud service will support all ACS Commons tools? Philip or Alex or Tad?
That's a great question. I defer to Tad. I know there is work going on to make sure that most of them are being converted or working already, or being validated whether they work or not. Mm-hmm. But I don't have the
on the ACS Commons site. It'll note when something is cloud service tested.
Okay.
Yeah, most of the times it should work, but eventually it is not certified yet by that group. Like every version, like 6.4, 6.5, when it release, they make sure they test it thoroughly, and then when it is for sure, then they will actually put that supported version in every tool of it. So if it is supported, it will be mentioned there.
Let's do one more question. How about, is there anything in system or console accessible like status views?
As far as I know, there are no endpoints on the OSGI console that are accessible, and there are in the developer console. Some of those things have been moved over so that you can look at it. But yeah, if you're used to doing things in Config Manager, that's not available on the cloud service. It's available in the SDK. So when you're working locally, you can do that, but not on the cloud service.
Okay. I'm sorry we couldn't cover all the questions, but if you have any more questions, please feel free to.
Yeah, we had a big list of responses of different questions that people wanted taken up, and we've got a ton more in the chat pod here. We already know that we're going to need to do another one of these guys.
Yeah, so we should be back soon, and I wanted to also let you know that we have an event coming up on June 23rd. It's going to be, the speaker is Gabriel Wald, and the topic is the web and beyond, the power of traditional headless content management. So I look forward to seeing you next month, and you can join adobecommunity.org for free to stay updated on all these events. I would now like to thank all the panelists for making this happen. Thank you so much, Barnik, Philip, Tad, Lokesh, Alex. Thank you for your time, and all the panelists who were able to join, especially the ones from India. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you for
Thanks,
having
everyone.
us.
Thanks, guys. Yeah. Take care.
Thank you.
Everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.
Bye.